Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of Through the Bible. Today we're going to be taking a look at Exodus 1 through 4. So, when our scripture begins today, we see that the Israelites have become very numerous and prosperous and powerful in the land. The Egyptians have forgotten about Joseph, and now they're more worried about the size and power of this group of people. So they begin to oppress them. They fear an uprising from them. They fear that they might join their enemy if there's an attack. And so they call in the midwives and they tell them to kill the male Hebrew babies when they're born. Well, when this doesn't happen, they say, "Why didn't you do this?" And they say, "Well, they're different than the Egyptian women, and so they have the babies before we get there. Maybe they just took their time getting there." But however they did it, obviously there is some misleading going on, but the higher calling here was to save these babies. So then they put out a decree and say, okay, throw them into the Nile. So any male babies that are born, throw them into the Nile. Now this is interesting because there are at least three gods that are associated with the Nile, three false gods: Osiris, Nu, and Happy. Happy was the god of fertility. He's defined as a he, but he actually had female characteristics like large breasts and pregnant. So this fertility idea, I don't know, we don't know for sure, but perhaps by throwing them into the Nile, it's interesting they pointed that out. They didn't just say drown them, they said throw them into the Nile. So perhaps they were trying to do some kind of sacrifice or some kind of offering to the gods. So in Exodus 2, we see that Moses' ark is saved from destruction. He's drawn from the water. That's what his name means, Moses, drawn from the water. This is interesting because the Bible refers to water as a source of life. We see that Jesus says he is the living water. And so this idea, this also the ark idea, him being in the ark, rising above the flood, so to speak, we see that connection with Noah. And then we see as he gets older, he goes out, he sees what's going on with his people, he sees the Egyptian abusing one of his fellow Hebrews, and some believe that he was doing more than beating him, that he was actually beating him to death, and Moses responded and killed the Egyptian, and not only earned the ire of Pharaoh, but also earned the ire of even his fellow Hebrews. They didn't believe that he should lord over them or that he should try to take their place or whatever. We don't know exactly why they were upset with him for that, but maybe because it caused them even more greater hardship. But this does go to show that Moses already had something stirring in his heart. His gift was being stirred up. There was a deliverance, a delivering spirit that was happening in him, that God was calling him to deliver the people. He just acted in a time that was inappropriate and in a way that was inappropriate. And too often that happens with us too. God has a calling on us. We're passionate about it, and we jump ahead of God and we do something in a way that causes challenges and problems. So he goes into the wilderness to protect himself, to save himself from the Pharaoh and the people that are chasing him. It's interesting that he probably spends, and different people have ideas on this, but many believe that it was 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in the desert, before he takes the people out. So this idea of 40, the idea of 40 days and 40 nights upon the world, the idea of Jesus in the wilderness for 40 days, this idea of testing and tribulation and trial and time of difficulty and judgment really upon our lives as we work toward the things that God has for us, all seen here in the book of Exodus and Moses' life. In chapter 3, we see the burning bush, and Moses asks, "Who shall I say sent me?" God responds by saying, "I am that I am," or it might be more closely translated, "I will be what I will be." So this idea of this self-existent God, this eternal God, Jesus kind of fills in some blanks in the New Testament. He says, "I am the bread of life. I am the gate. I am the door. I am the only way to the Father. I am the living water. I am the way." So Jesus kind of fills in the blank there, and God is what you need. That's the bottom line. God is what we need. God is what the world needs. God is. And so God is actually giving Moses a heads up about everything that's going to happen throughout here, and you can read it in there, all the different things that he tells him to do and what's going to happen. Many of these are prophetic insights into what's happening. And I think this is pretty interesting here as we look at the prophetic ministry, because Moses was considered a prophet. What he's doing is he is hearing from God, because God said, I won't do anything without first speaking to my prophets. And he's speaking to the prophet Moses here, and Moses is learning what God is about to do so that he can convey it to the people so that they will know what to do. So he is speaking to Moses so that Moses will know what to do, and he's speaking through Moses so the people will know what to do. And that is the true call of prophetic ministry. Prophetic ministry is not just forecasting the future or predicting something that's going to happen in the future. Prophetic ministry is when God is conveying his heart to us, his plans, his ideas, and then he's giving us instruction on how to carry out what his will is in our life or in the life of the church or in the life of other things that he sends us to. In Exodus 4, he says, Israel is my firstborn son, and if you don't let the people go, he's telling Moses this is what he needs to tell Pharaoh, then I'm going to take your firstborn. And we see that is what ultimately happens as we move forward. Moses obeys, but as he is on his way to do the work that God has called him to do, he neglects to circumcise, he neglects to go into covenant, he neglects to fulfill the duties of a priest, of a prophet completely. And so God is actually coming to take his life. His wife, Zipporah, comes in, she does the deed, she does the right, saves Moses' life, and now he's ready to go into what God has called him to do. This is akin to Matthew 22. If you remember, just a few weeks ago or a few days ago, we just talked about how that the man had been invited into the king's feast, but when he got there, they realized he had not changed his clothes, he had not prepared for it, he had not done the things he needed to do, and therefore he was kicked out into outer darkness, into a place where there was weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. So not only do we follow the call of God, but we do it in the way that God prescribes us to do it. We have to do it according to his plans and according to his purposes and according to his ways. That covers today. And it's been great to see you. God bless you. We look forward to seeing you next time on Through the Bible.